We are following breaking news. Peter Navarro has been sentenced to 4 months in prison on 2 charges of contempt of Congress. These charges stem from his refusal to comply with a subpoena related to his actions after the 2020 presidential election. The former Trump White House official arrived at the courthouse in Washington this morning. Prosecutors had asked the judge to impose a prison sentence of 6 months and a fine of $600,000. Navarro is the second Trump ally to be convicted for defying a subpoena from the January 6th committee. Steve Bannon was also sentenced to 4 months in prison in October 2022 for the same offense, but a federal judge suspended his sentence to allow his appeal to move forward. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us now from outside of the courthouse in Washington. Scott, a lot of people looking at this. You have been following this even more closely than most others. What can you share about today's sentencing?
Peter Navarro was expressionless as Judge Amit Mehta handed down this sentence: 4 months in prison for contempt of Congress for defying the subpoena of that House Select January 6th committee. That's the same exact sentence handed down by a different judge to Steve Bannon, another Trump advisor, who was also convicted by a jury of contempt of Congress for snubbing that committee. Navarro made an argument for leniency today. He wasn't expected to. His attorneys advised him not to, but he went to the podium anyhow and made an argument that he believed he was protected from testifying to that committee by executive privilege. Judge Mehta responded, saying that argument just didn't hold water, that the law doesn't allow for it, that the committee had a job to do, investigating the attack on the U.S. Capitol, and that Navarro made that job harder. And then the judge emphasized to Navarro, "You're not a victim. You're not the victim of a political prosecution. You made the work harder of the U.S. Congress. You defied the responsibility of Americans." Peter Navarro had made that argument to media, to cameras outside the courthouse, but he never testified at his own trial in this case. And it took the jury just a matter of hours to convict him. Now he faces 4 months in a federal prison, though it's important to underscore he's certain to appeal this case, and he likely won't have to report to prison during part, if not all, of that appeal. That's one reason why Steve Bannon has yet to report a year and a half later to serve his 4-month sentence.
Right. I was going to ask you about that, Scott, because there are ways in which Navarro and Bannon's cases are very similar. There are some ways in which they're different. Is it a certainty that Peter Navarro will not have to spend any time behind bars as he tries to appeal his case?
It's a real complicated question if you try to unpack it. He's certain to appeal the conviction and the sentence. And Steve Bannon may have set an example for the courts here that you can stay free in this unique case, contempt of the U.S. Congress, while you navigate that appeal. Steve Bannon has stretched out the clock already, nearly 18 months. Peter Navarro likely will be able to try, may be able to do the same. But there's also that other asterisk, right? What if there's a new president on January 20th, 2025, who may be in the business of issuing pardons? That's a prospect that's worth talking about, considering Donald Trump has talked about pardons of January 6th defendants. In this case, of course, has a nexus to January 6th. Navarro was convicted of snubbing the January 6th committee.
All right, Scott MacFarlane, thank you.